Okay. This is mainly for people to discuss where we're going and to ask the news questions and opinions and all that kind of thing. Has everyone kind of been introduced? So go around and tell you quickly who everyone is. Lynn is a fantastic artist, and Joyce is a sculptor extraordinaire.
Linda Hoffman also sculptor and sculptor. Sharon Top.
I'm Zita and I run the gallery that we're going to be exhibiting.
The boss lady.
Yeah, so this is
Curator.
very important if you want to look at the gallery, you want to know anything about Tux.
Okay.
This is the lady. That is, no, I don't know.
Snuck in.
Andre does photography, and drawing and philosophy.
Ailyn, opera singer. This is Colin, also ex-opera singer and then fine artist.
I'm a photographer and I'm also here for Dylan, who's a painter, artist, slash.
Johan here, also a sculptor.
Alan Dang, also a sculptor.
So we've got, it looks like plenty of work from, and a whole range from for performances with Ailyn and possibly Ellen and someone else from Cape Town, and lots of people offering to do workshops, because the idea, I think everybody knows, but the idea is that we're having an event. It's not just a put two things up and go away. So we have the first week where we set up, second and third week we're going to run workshops and events, and then the last week is a bit of a close down. The Monday is Women's Day, so I sort of feel like we should do something then. That sort of covers 4 weeks, but the two middle ones are the sort of activity ones. The opening is on the 23rd. Ailyn's going to perform, so we'll have a piano and an accompanist, and then that first weekend we'll be doing our normal life drawing there in the gallery, probably but we can finalise that. So that's really great. So I think we've got quite an exciting month. I have now put my very bad technology skills in a Google form now. So if you please start putting your face as a picture and your statements and biography, but it can be updated. So if you just start with the little bits that you've got and progress photos, things of you working in the studio, if you don't mind me posting them, just tell me, but you can put them on for me now, because I want to make a nice catalogue, and that will take time. So the sooner the better. Okay, I'm going to shut up because Ailyn must talk.
If you'd like to know anything more on that, happy to talk more on it, but I thought I would talk to you a little bit about the music itself. I finally have been able to work with my collaborative pianist, which is such a delight. And one of the pieces, I have my new favorite of the cycle for a long time, it was Listen and Snake, but the one that is really sticking with me a lot at the moment is Woe Man. And one of the things that we sort of came up in discussion in these rehearsals is this sort of take on the flow of the typical biblical story that Eve is created and Adam and Eve are inhabiting this garden in kind of a ignorant bliss, I guess, and are very comfortable in their nudity until Eve goes for this fruit and feeds it to Adam, and suddenly they feel the need to sew together fig leaves and conceal their genitals and manage the shame. And I think with this cycle, the story happens the other way around, that when she starts in that sort of initial song, My Name, where she's being created, there's a lot of themes in there that reflect shame and questioning and a real sense of discomfort or just being uncomfortable in your skin or uncomfortable in the space. I think in part because it is so dominated by male energy. And I think in that song, she really, the biggest shame that she really reflects is the shame about her mother, or the lack thereof, or there's a line there that she was too little to save her or remember anything about her. And there's lines in it as well where she talks about the amnesiac me, which I think is a really interesting thing to explore in terms of why has she got this memory loss? What has been blacked out from her consciousness that she's not allowed to recall, even after the fruit, probably. And so the song sort of, the cycle goes on, it moves into even, which is also very uncomfortable. She's all right while the light is still out, but as it starts to get dark, she doesn't feel safe, she doesn't feel, okay in the space, and in the sort of darkness of night. And kind of through every song, I feel that this Eve develops and becomes a new version of herself, either as every song passes or throughout the song that she is singing. So it goes into Good Morning, where she sort of starts to take on some control and is joyful of the morning happening and the light coming out and feeling a little bit more secure because she can see what's going on around her, but she also takes it upon herself to now name things, which was a role sort of reserved for Adam to do. He was supposed to go around the garden and tell us what everything was. And she's trying to figure out the best name for things, to just a name that would capture who they are and what it is, and define for her quite clearly what she's able to eat and what's good in the world and what's bad in the world. There's such a wonderful ascending line in the piano part towards the end of that good song. It says, are you slow? Are you fleet? Are you obedient? Are you good? And it's got the most obscure rising scales that make no sense. It's like when you win at a casino and that happens, and then, up to are you good? And decides that almost everything is good to eat in this garden, and that if she could, she'd eat the world because she sees the world as a good thing. And then the snake shows up, and she's obviously never seen one of these guys before. And in this snake piece, sort of things to listen out for, I guess, in the piano part here, is so much of art song tradition is to sort of showcase how the voice and the piano play a very even role in the product of the music. It's not that the voice is more important and the piano is accompanying. We often refer to in art song the pianist as a collaborative pianist, or a repetiteur, someone sort of specialized to work with singers. And the piano part often then reflects the environment, or it reflects your inner psychological state, or events happening around what you as a character are singing. So there's so many moments in this listen song where those opening lines is written in such a way to evoke slithering within the music. I try my best in this particular one to bring out as many sounds in the words as possible, so that we have that kind of dialogue with Snake coming out. And in that one he asks over and over again, do you want to be like God? And it's so seductive, and it's such a warm harmony. It feels like a blanket whenever I hear the sort of dance-like theme come in before she starts asking, do you want to be like God? And it's this sort of sensation of, I feel like what the accompaniment is bringing out and the energy that the snake is bringing is this feeling of like, it's so good to be bad, this warm feeling. And she doesn't really buy it in the beginning. She's like, be old and have a penis. Like, I don't think so.
Do you want to be like God? No, thanks.
The snake kind of gets into her head a bit more, and he's got lines sort of saying how his body ripples back and forth like a sentence. There's a really beautiful play on that idea of God speaking existence into happening, or into being. That sort of play on sentence structure and wording, I think, is quite beautiful. And how she eventually goes, okay, I get what you mean. That I view myself as a story, that my body is a story to be uttered, and then maybe I would like to be like God if I could be my own story. Follows him around is really great confrontations about what it means to be visible. But what sort of struck me is that as you go through this, she sort of justifies to herself like why she's going to go for this route and why it's a good idea. And sort of the last lines of that song are sweet, salty, bitter, rotten. The taste of air is what she sort of, and water is what she's left with, and this statement of now I know. And there in the typical story is when her shame should hit. And for this Eve, I just think it doesn't happen at all. That she's finally got this knowledge, she's got this wisdom and understanding of the world that she thought was so good around her. And goes into the line, woe to man. Starts off just unaccompanied, her voice as a kind of foreboding woe is to man. What can a man expect? Think of all the gifts and riches a woman brings in her train, and besides the obvious differences, inside out, below the waist, which I just love as a visual image. Bigger breasts, smaller brain, can you think? And what I think is so interesting about what Jake Heggie chose to do musically here is the piano part is sort of very much captures that 1920s burlesque lounge jazz, which I think is really interesting that he chose that style of music to capture this version of Eve, because it was a time in history sort of that was incredibly patriarchal, incredibly sort of misogynistic. The sort of burlesque lounge girls were not empowered women. They were like typically that housewife with an apron and a baby in one arm and a glass of wine ready for her husband as he walks through the door, and that she's really not that woman that like carries so much of the shame that is put on Eve through her choice to go for this fruit. And she's like, you know, it's shame that they are feeling as in terms of how they have responded to femininity and womanhood and how they've tried to manage and control it, and that she refuses to take this sort of shame on. And so Heggie's instructions in the score after Woe to Man and this sort of big foreboding opening, gradually to slow down into what you would consider as a tempo to be a cocky stride that's ironic. The image that goes through my mind when I try to think of this tempo is those sort of very old school Disney animations of often with like, I think it must have been cowboys or something, but that kind of walk where they would strut forward and the leg would move forward but kind of continue to grow into length and then plot down as they were going. So that's kind of the image that I have in my mind as I try to choose the tempo. And it's the sort of, I guess, if I were to try to think of a character that I try and embody while I'm singing this line, these lines, is not that housewife in an apron, but if any of you have seen the musical Chicago, if you haven't, go watch it, it's fabulous. There is a scene with Big Mama Morton. She is the warden of the jail, and this woman has been arrested for shooting a man, but her head lives in the world of like burlesque theatre, and so all of these real life situations are just turned into burlesque performances in the jail. And the sort of famous song from that Mama Morton sings is that, "You be good to Mama, Mama be good to you." And so goes into can you think of anything, which sort of goes from 1920s jazz to kind of Leonard Bernstein, late romantic, early modern, kind of Broadway classical blend. There's lines here that are almost identical to an aria called Glitter and Be Gay. It's pretty much an opera where everything that could ever go wrong goes wrong. There's like murder and wars and famines and floods and just everything that could go wrong happens. And it's all, the characters approach it with this like over-the-top optimism. So there's this young woman who fell in love with a man and she's lost all of her wealth and she's convinced he's dead in the war, but he's not actually, and she becomes a prostitute. And realizes she really likes sparkly things, and not loving being a prostitute but loves the sparkles. And so it's this very neurotic flitting between confronting what she has to do to get this money, but like how delightful sparkly stuff is, and she has a very neurotic kind of laughter that she does. So there's quite a lot of that coloratura styled singing that was very famous in the Baroque period. That's how we re-envisioned. It says this neurotic character as she's contemplating that line, like, can you think of anything? And it starts to make her go a little crazy. And so if you were to do it as like a typical bel canto singer, something along the lines of like a little shimmery scale, so it would be a very shimmery down. In this recording, I just love what she does. She turns it on its head and starts all bel canto and ends Broadway. So she does a into this, can't handle it. And this line of, you haven't lived until a man has said that to you. And I've been torn between what, like performing this as a you haven't lived with eye roll, or very caricature, you haven't lived until a man has said that to you. I think could also be quite effective. And what's interesting then at this point in the song is it reverts back musically all the way back to the very, very first theme in the music, that kind of creation theme where she's become really uncomfortable. It's supposed to be sung very slow, and even in the score itself says recalling to the first song. On the line, woman, because she was born of man, woe to man. And I think for a moment she's like thrown back into the reality of are these stories that were fed to her actually the truth? Is this like the truth of my existence? She's thrown back into feeling insecure, back into feeling ashamed. And yeah, which I think is quite interesting that he chose to put it here. One of the thoughts I've had as to why he might have done that is this a response to like, okay, I've said it out loud, what I think about the story, and I've taken on this empowered sexuality, and like what's the repercussion going to be? I think what could also be an interpretation here is that, I mean, in this particular song, there's such a strong sexual energy, and maybe it's that they've eaten this fruit and they have a whole new take on what sex can be, on what nudity is, and I think it could be like a whole seduction scene between Adam and Eve, like that Eve has now taken on this, like, I know how powerful my naked body can be, take. And maybe she gets pregnant in the song is one of my thoughts. And
we don't fully
perhaps
know.
When this theme comes back in, and she's saying, you know, you haven't lived until a man has said that to you. I mean, we could think of it as her addressing kind of all of woman when she says this, but she could also be talking to this creature in her womb, that she might feel that there is now something growing, and realizes the sort of power of birthing that she has, and then goes into a scat, which I suppose is homage to jazz, which Heggie had a great love for. And it's all the same melody as that initial cocky stride, but with a new set of kind of more dissonant harmonies underneath. And so I think it is that kind of re-reflection on, am I buying the stories that men have told me? Am I taking on that shame, or am I leaving that shame for them to feel? And is she just perhaps contemplating this creature growing in her tummy? And ends with a set of sighs. There are 4 of them. And, you know, I think that as a singer, we always have to ask ourselves why. Like, why suddenly 4 hours after all of this text that you've confronted? And is it just like an afterthought, or is it just like a fusing down of the music into the next piece? But for me, I think these sighs are all kind of sighs on what she has processed and how she's evolved as she went through the experience of the songs. I mean, for the first one, at the moment, what my go-to is this, like, I've said it, I got it off my chest. It then becomes clashy and obscure in the harmony, and so she's kind of going, shit, I said it, like, is there going to be a repercussion? Am I not to be in trouble? The next one I go, I flipped back to, don't give a fuck, I've said it out loud. And the last one is a semitone up, which often reflects a question, that she's, you know, what is the ramifications of what I've just done? It then moves into the song called The Womb. It's such a soft, not here or there. You can barely, sometimes the voice is softer than the piano, sometimes the piano is a bit softer than the voice, but it's very interwoven. And there she's starting to worry about what might be in her child's head already as a result of the fact that she's eaten this fruit. It's the farm, and it's really like a big reflection on her time spent in the garden, and she's so nostalgic about it. And just sort of talks about the fact that everyone worked, and we had to till the land, and everything grew despite the fact that there was no rain. And it's almost that she feels the sort of sense of like loss of that original space. And I like that language of we all worked, because it just equalizes the playing field a lot for me, that, you know, she wasn't this housewife sitting inside feeding a baby, she was working the land alongside Adam the whole time and making this garden thrive, because she loved the world.
So how would
like obviously I can Google this, but how would you very briefly define an art song, and how would you define the composer's take on the genre? Because the genre is normally important when understanding a piece of art.
Yeah. So an art song typically is a piece of music composed for voice and piano. It's 9 out of 10 times secular, understanding that the piano and the voice have equal footing when it comes to reflecting the music of that composition. Most art songs start with poetry, so the composer will work with a poet or find a catalogue of poems that they enjoy, will spend hours with the poetry to develop musical ideas or to develop a sense of character. So like whenever, if you ever watch a masterclass of the singer doing a masterclass on an art song, you walk on stage and you're expected to introduce yourself. But if I walk on stage with a masterclass for an art song and I go, "Hi, I'm Ailyn," they will kick me off stage. That you have to go, "Hi, I'm Eve. I'm in this world. This is what I'm looking at. It's this time of day. I'm wearing this. I'm this age. I fit into this like societal classes here and there." That you kind of try your best to create as well-rounded a character based on the poetry as possible.
Is the pianist also meant to be in character, or are they sort of like the landscape in a sense?
So every now and then the piano gets to be a character. I did a concert of Jake Heggie songs last year, and that was a fun one. It was a set of sort of art songs for 3 voices and piano, and there the piano was the main character. But a lot of the time it's they are more in the background, kind of creating a psychological landscape or creating an image of water running if we are commenting on a river or whatever it is.
When I look at the text, the fact that woe and women were standing next to each other, you know, the notion of woe and then the atonal undertone of the music, and women being the sort of the atonal side of tone, which is the supposedly rational mind. I know it's a bit of a binary, but just the idea of woe and woe as that shady side of us, all of us. I don't think it's a gender thing.
No.
Whether it's male or female,
but it is a gender thing, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, you can. But I'm more interested in the fact that woe is part of everybody's life.
I love that.
And that woe is and I think that's why it's, you know, it's, for me, whether it's male, female, out.
The dichotomy is the treachery of patriarchy, isn't it?
Yeah, but that sense of woe, I think, can be, when in a painterly sensibility, it's always the disruption, you know, or the disruptor. That woman is the disruptor. So that.
I think there's so many little things that are tied to it that one would hope people would use this vehicle in whatever way they need it. The theme that I'm addressing is that sort of sisterhood, is that, to me, I look at Eve and I think she was so alone in terms of women in her life. So that's what it's a very simple part of the story. So, you know, I think there's so many, the way the farm's described and the landscape and, you know, the tree of knowledge, and there's such small things that can be, and the river's a big thing, which I think I'm talking to you and Bernard's, you know, I've got a sculpture that he's borrowed the river from now too. So, you know, they're very small things that you can take from it. Look at how closely it ties in with Ailyn. It's not, as long as it's sort of around a female, you know, sort of myth is. The main thing is that we try and make this fun for us. The main thing is for us, the artists and the students there. And when this came up, it was just everybody should be doing this so we can see what everybody's doing because it's such fun. So, and I think we must try to document this well for us and also for Ailyn, because, you know, hopefully this kind of thing can work for people's masters and doctorates, because it can be quite a lonely experience to do this. And if you can work with a group of people, and in any of our arts, from the drama to anything, if you can do this, you'll have to feedback afterwards, you know, and say, did anything come of it that helped you? Did it help your process? It's certainly your reading. I have got enormous amount out of it. But the discussions that come out and how after, what you feel now and what you feel afterwards and what you think I could have done and I can do, it's made such a difference too. So I hope that everyone else is feeling that and keep the discussion going in some way. So the songs are easy to read and sound to intuitive. I saw Ailyn's concert last year, and I think what struck me so much about it is when you go, if you're outside and you go to that kind of concert, I think you can sit after you see a lot of people going, what happened? Because it's a strange jumble of noise. It's not very easy. The amazing bits, which I found, those all bits of burlesque and bits of movie that suddenly grab your heartstrings. When you suddenly feel that tug of familiarity or a smell, so it kind of bounces you around a bit, which I think art could do in a way as well. But I thought, if you could help an audience to understand what this was about, it was such an amazing. It's such an amazing story and set of poems, because I think a lot of people go in there, they heard a few of the swear words and some of the strange notes and go, this, what?
It was really interesting to start the concert with these Eve songs, and I felt like for the first time in ages when I've been performing, like from the beginning of the concert, I just alienated the audience. I forgot I was in Pretoria, and just a bunch of conservative religious humans around me that came to watch the show, and so it was this very tense audience member look where I think everyone was avoiding eye contact the whole time, and then there was like the odd human beaming at me, so I would kind of sing to them and then sing to them. It was really strange experience. Yeah.
Maybe I don't know if this is too on the nose for the curation and the catalogue, but let's say I respond to a particular line in song 3, verse 15, but you've responded to something in song 3, verse 8, your piece should appear before mine, so that because then if I had the catalogue, then I can see.
That would be.
Okay, so in the first song, this is an artwork responding to that line, and then the song continues, and in the second song, okay, these 3 artworks all respond to that stanza, and then this, so then it almost becomes like a picture book of the.
The fun thing, the good thing is that Ailyn's taken too long to learn new songs, so the final recital is only going to be at the end of the year. So, because if you ask me to do that now for the catalogue, I'm going to panic because it's 2.5 months and I'm not experienced, and but I think that could be such an amazing thing to do actually.
Because then you can listen to that part, you can hear the music, you can read the words, but you now also have an illustration of one person's reaction. And then maybe that can give you a bit more access to it.
What I will do is when Ailyn, at the end of the year, when she does her final recital in the museum, we will do a smaller exhibition for her in that foyer.
On the side of the museum, and some of the stuff on the stage.
And then what I want to do there is this. Now it's got a new life. I wanted to do a program for her that has a bit of the story in, so that when people come to a final doctorate recital, but that will be a slide, that will be a sort of a not every single thing. But for our one in July, we will have it. I want to put everybody's statement, the biography, all the artworks into a digital catalogue.
Information design department. I mean, you can even try and. Yeah.
And
Try to